Arizona, and welcome to the Asset Preservation Hour with Stewart Willis. He is the founder and president of Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax. I am your host, Spike Spangle. Stewart, if you can't tell, I'm really excited. I do not see your radio cans on your ears. I get to see you in person.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, man. I'm so glad to have you here. I've been doing the radio show together for quite a bit, and now we have you on TV.
Yeah, we're on AM 550 KTAR here on Arizona. We do a full hour radio program. We talk a lot about the current events. We take your listener questions out there. And now I'm joining you. Thank you so much for letting me be on a part of the program. One of the things I have brought to this is a lot of the current information that you and I have been going through on the radio broadcast. One of the things we did recently is we did a symposium together. There were a bunch of financial advisors kind of talking about what is the angst that's going on. Three things we identified why retirees are failing today: inflation, market risk, and longevity. So let's start out right away with inflation. What are you seeing? What is happening still here in Arizona? When do we see an end to this inflation?
Well, yeah, so Arizona has some of the highest inflation in the country right now. And part of that historically has been because of housing prices and other factors. We're seeing a mass influx of people still coming from those higher tax states. But inflation is a tough thing to curb. And, you know, obviously it feels like the Federal Reserve Chairman is using a sledgehammer rather than a scalpel to kind of fix the problem, right?
Right. And so part of what they've been doing is bumping up interest rates. We know 75 basis points here, 75 basis points there. I think there's going to be more. I see it as making it more expensive to borrow money. I'm seeing it in the mortgages. I'm seeing that it's more expensive to buy cars. I think I was joking with you before. I'm a Jeep guy. I saw somewhere in my Instagram feed, $95,000 to buy a new Jeep Rubicon. I'm seeing where the prices are going up, but I'm not seeing where it's coming back to the consumer. Why aren't I seeing it in bank accounts or savings accounts or CDs? Why aren't those interest rates coming back to us?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, I'm not a big fan of financing things in higher interest rate environments, but sometimes it makes sense to build credit. For example, I have my eldest son who's heading off to UCLA now. I'm super proud of him. It's a big deal for me, at least. And, you know, when I went to trade in a car, you know, the local dealership offered me another car, said I could trade in my current car at what I paid for it, you know, 6 months ago. It's the craziest thing. But what I didn't catch is when we got down to financing, I looked at the rate and it went from, you know, 2.9% just, you know, 4 or 5 months ago to 7.9%. So we're starting to see this massive spike in interest rates, and you would think that would slow things down, but the payment didn't look much higher. And I was like, okay, well, let me figure out why is this? It doesn't pass the smell test. Well, it's no longer a 5-year, you know, loan. It's a 7-year loan, a 7-year car loan.
Oh my, 7? Wait, it's 7 years on just the car loan?
Yeah.
Well, I guess his cars are going for $95,000. It's almost like getting a mortgage.
Yeah. So you know, we haven't seen the price compression very much yet on cars. But I can tell you this, you know, some of the cars are going for over retail at the dealership, which is, you know, atrocious. And now we're starting to see, you know,
and for today's retiree, it doesn't mean that they can go without transportation. Look, your vehicle eventually is going to wear down. How do you help factor in that kind of inflation for people at the firm? How do you this is unprecedented inflation.
It's pretty nuts, and I think that, you know, the way that we like to invest and plan for our clients is to make sure that we don't have money that's unused, so to speak. Of course, we need to make sure that there's plenty of cash reserves. You know, we're now saying 3 to 6 months of emergency fund to make sure if things go really bad, like they did during COVID, you know, you'll have, you know, some money to pay any necessary bills. But you also want to make sure that your money's working for you. I think, you know, with the latest numbers we're seeing between 8.9 and 9.1% inflation, that's going to hit people pretty hard. And people realize, you know, that if they've got money sitting in the checking account or in their money market account, it's losing 8 or 9% a year to inflation, right?
Yeah, and I know that that's because people are trying to be safe. But as we say, you are safely going broke over time. If you're sitting there in a bank CD that's earning you 0.5% and inflation is even 7 or 8%, you're losing money over and over again.
Yeah, no question about it. So I think it's really important to make sure all of your money is working for you, whether it's your kind of safe liquid money or your safe long-term money. Rate of return really matters right now. And I think the nice thing is, the benefit of all these interest rate spikes is you may not be seeing it, when it comes to, prices on cars and stuff like that. But what we are seeing is a spike in interest rate when it comes to long-term investors. So a lot of the fixed products, for example, a lot of people are annuity investors. And annuities, they have a good name, bad name, depends on who you talk to, right? Mm-hmm. But the nice thing is a lot of those fixed rates that we see in those products are starting to, escalate quite highly now compared to even where they were, 4, 5, 6 months ago.
Right. I want to just touch on this, but I think we're going to have to cover some after a quick break. I want to talk a little bit about the market risk. So we were talking about different ways that folks are failing in retirement. Market risk, taking too much, taking too little. Right now, what I'm worried about is people trying to chase after returns in a risky market. We've seen this since the beginning of the year. The market is depressed down nearly 20%. As we've talked about, it is going now more towards the bear market territory as opposed to our 14-year bull run.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitively in bear market territory now. I think that goes without saying. It's pretty clear. The debate over whether we're in bear or in bull territory isn't as loud as whether or not we're in recession. Let me announce it: we are in recession. If you can't keep shifting definitions, that's where we are. Now the question should be now: what should we do? How do we adapt? And I think what we'll do after break. Right. Let's talk about a few options that we have at Asset Preservation to help you avoid any sort of further downturns to your portfolio, and what kind of things we can do for you.
I could not have said it better. We will take that break. Folks, though, call right now and make sure that you get your own complimentary retirement review. You want to make sure that the three things that we're talking about here today, risk, longevity, and that inflation, are not stopping you from being and staying retired. To get that review, it is absolutely complimentary, but you need to reach out to us. Call 833-652-7829. More with Stewart Willis and the Asset Preservation Hour television show, not radio, with Stewart Willis right after this.
This is the story of how you get from here to there. Right now you're here, but in the future, you want to be there. And from here, there looks pretty good. But so few get to there. Why? Well, of those who do make it, some will have luck, but most will have a strategy. They will save and invest, grow and protect, and they will work with advisors who will help guide their way. If you're looking to get somewhere, to get there, we know how to set a course. It's what we do, and we do it well. We're investment specialists, retirement advisors, insurance experts, and financial planners. We have innovative wealth tracking tools to monitor your progress every step of the way. Wherever you are now, we can help you get to where you want to be. The road between here to there is shorter for those who know the way.
Welcome back to the Asset Preservation Hour with Stewart Willis. I am your host, Spike Spangle, for this week's program. You might recognize my voice. We do the radio show together on AM 550 and KTAR every single week. We do a full hour. Stewart, when do you sleep? I mean, I know you're in the TV studio all the time. You're running the offices. Sun City, Tempe. Where's the other office at? Scottsdale, of course. Yeah, right. All over the place.
And we have the new Scottsdale office. We just signed the lease on. It's going to be a phenomenal location. I'm not going to reveal it yet, but it's a really neat place.
But more important, like we say on the radio program, if you're watching the TV show or if you're hearing us on the radio, you want to be able to help folks out no matter what. So call the phone number on the screen, no matter where the offices are. Just give us a call. That way you can get your own retirement plan review. Make sure you're being tax efficient, so much more. So what I wanted to continue with, what we did was kind of set up the table. What are some of the reasons why people are struggling with retirement in this recession and high inflation? Now I want some solutions. Let's not just be reporters about this. You are a financial advisor. This is what you help people with. What can we do? Let's set it up two ways. If you're still working, but close to retirement, and in a little bit, let's talk about those who are already retired.
Yeah, so Spike, I can tell you that is the biggest question I have right now. We have tons of people that are coming in that are thinking, oh my gosh, maybe I have to work an extra year or 2 or 3, because I think what's happened is people have gotten used to these just unbelievable rate of returns. And just remember that those aren't forever. We had 12 years of the greatest market the world's ever seen, followed by a great economy as well. So not just, remember, the stock market and the economy are 2 different things. They work hand in hand, but they don't always correlate.
And I think people confuse those 2 things together. You see the business pay, and I think a lot of people right now are just putting their heads underneath the pillow and trying not to pay attention.
Well, I think number one, what people have to do is if they're working and they're considering retiring, the question is why. And a lot of times it's because people just don't know their options. Spike, we see people all the time that say, hey, you know what, I just need to retire to capture my pension plan or capture my lump sum from my 401k to make sure I protect it because my 401k just doesn't have enough options inside it. And I'll just say this, that, people just don't understand what all their options are. And I think one of the most misunderstood options is their age 59 and a half in-service rollover option. So what this is, Spike, is it allows you to basically say, when you turn 59 and a half, most 401k plans, your thrift savings plan, most 403bs, some deferred comp 457 plans, they allow you to roll over your retirement plan to an IRA to have it professionally managed outside. Now,
this isn't me pulling the money completely out and stopping my 401k. This is why I wanted to talk about this with you, because I don't think it's misunderstood. I think there's so many people who don't know about it.
Yeah,
they don't even realize it's an option. Now, number 1 rule, 59 and a half. You have to be of a certain age first. Why do you think that is? Do you think they realize that at this point we've probably saved a lot of money in those accounts and it's time to have somebody on the outside help you manage it?
Well, I think on that, the real answer is that, employers are looking to limit their own liability. And they just realize as you get closer to retirement, some of these old plans that used to exist that, I'll use Enron as an example because
because they threw an Enron bomb at us.
Right, but because they're not in business to sue me for saying it. But, but at the end of the day, they used to, their employees used to hold company stock as a major portion of their retirement plans. And so what these employers now want is basically you to say, hey, I'm not responsible. The employer just wants no responsibility for the downside. Now, here's the thing. At 59 and a half, the beauty is you can roll it over in most cases to an IRA, and there's tremendous benefits. But let me first talk about some downsides to it, because there's never, it's never a perfect scenario. One downside to rolling out your retirement plan out of your 401k is number 1, loan provisions, right? Your 401k typically allows you to borrow against your money. In an IRA, that's generally not the case. So that's number 1. Number 2, there's ERISA protections. So in some states, ERISA protections are really important. States like California, where you can be sued for anything. And so the IRA, in Arizona, we don't have quite those concerns as we do in California. But there's a couple downsides. Now, the benefits. Here's the benefits. The benefit is you can now have it professionally managed. You don't have to, do it yourself. You don't have to just guess.
Or guess what, there's maybe you have 10, 15, 20 different funds and you're managing it on your own. When was the last time you changed those elections? When was the last time you rebalanced those accounts?
Yeah, I mean, and what we're seeing all the time is, people are saying, they're having their kid or their husband or their wife or whomever in their household picking the funds for them because they're really, really smart, or they're an engineer, and let me just tell you, Spike, a blind chicken could have made money here in this market over the last decade, right?
Right.
And now what we're seeing is, where we're really testing how good a financial advisor or how good a money manager a spouse is. And we're seeing a lot of people that are saying, hey, you know what? We've done a good job. Time to take some chips off the table, have it professionally managed. And the beauty about that at Asset Preservation is that we have multiple money managers, which I think is a really important thing.
I do want to go more into that. One more thing, though, in this rollover, because we talked about it again at this conference. Target date funds. A lot of folks are using target date funds. I believe the numbers were somewhere around the 2025 fund is down 14%. The 2030 fund is down 15% year to date. For folks who are nearing retirement, those are some serious numbers. And if those are what you're using inside your retirement accounts at work, you might be panicking, saying, I might have to work longer. So can they roll those out as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So a target date fund doesn't lock you in until that date. It basically reallocates based on what they believe is appropriate for your retirement date at that point. But what we've seen is a lot of those target date funds are basically, a bond to stock ratio. So as you get closer to retirement date, it heads more towards safe or bonds. The problem is what is safe historically may not be safe now. So in this rising interest rate environment, listen, this year, we not only did we see the worst stock market start, since the Great Depression here this year, we also saw the worst start since the 80s for the bond market. So long-term treasuries, long-term bonds have a tremendous amount of risk and don't offer the upside necessarily. So I think you have to remember a lot of these target date funds are using that kind of old mentality of a lowering interest rate environment, a rising stock market. And there's some other things that I have an issue with. We've talked about this quite a bit on the radio program. One of the issues with the target date funds is now people, they've almost become commoditized. And what I mean by that is that people are comparing target date fund A versus target date fund B from two separate companies. And if they both say 2025 on it, what people are looking at is, now what's their rate of return? And so now we have this big concern that these target date funds could be basically taking more risk inside their funds to compete against the guy next door.
To make them look, because honestly, just be quite frank with it, when people look to see what funds, whether it's a target date fund or a mutual fund or exchange traded fund or an individual stock, you're going to look at last year's return and the 3-year return and the 5-year return. So what you're saying is they might, not necessarily fudging the numbers, but they're going to try to get the best return numbers they can to get more people into their target date fund. And they might be taking more risk. And that's the whole point of the target date fund, is to reduce the risk over time.
That's exactly it. And I think that, if you're out there and you have a target date fund inside your 401k or your IRA, and now we're seeing them, come into the thrift savings plan now. If you have those target date funds and you're over 59.5 and you're concerned that they may be putting you at more risk, what we're offering you today is a complimentary portfolio review. But you have to take action today. If you pick up your phone right now, you click on that QR code that's in the corner of your screen right now, or you just call 833-652-7829. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what kind of risks are in your portfolio. What kind of fees are you paying inside there? And what kind of tax issues do you have looming in the background as well? But you have to take action today and give us a call.
Stewart, we got to take a very short break right now. Please take Stewart up on that offer. We know that you are worried about the market volatility. So when we get back, we're going to talk about the difference between passive and tactical management, the kind of management that they do at Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax. Call for your complimentary retirement review, 833-652-7829. More with Stewart Willis, my radio partner, when we get back right after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to the Asset Preservation Hour with Stewart Willis. I am your host, Spike Spangle. Yes, I am new to the television show here with Stewart, but we do our weekly radio program. And one of the things we talk about every single week, especially over the last few weeks, has been the Roth Conversion Challenge. Folks, I want you to think about this. How much of your money have you been saving for the last 20 or 30 years in tax-protected accounts? Those 401ks, those 457s, those 403bs. When you get into retirement, you're going to need to start drawing from them. And our challenge is this. Come down to the offices with those retirement accounts and let Stewart and the team take a look at them to see if you should do a Roth conversion. We challenge you to do something about it. Folks are so worried about where the markets are and where inflation is. This is the challenge. You want to know what to do? Take a look at your accounts and see if it's time for you to take tax responsibility for them right now. What are the advantages of doing the Roth conversion? Why do we want to have a Roth?
Yeah, so a lot of people misunderstand the Roth and whether or not they're eligible. So a lot of our clients that are, high income earners, or business owners, they say, well, you know what, I'm not eligible for a Roth. I make too much money. Well, you may not be eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA, but you can convert. There's no income limitation on conversion. Now, the whole benefit is this. You have to put into perspective that we are in the most efficient tax window in history right now. And that's going away no later than the end of 2025 if Congress doesn't act. Remember, we've recently seen with this Inflation Reduction Act a pretty big increase in corporate taxes. Now, that'll eventually translate down to us as individual taxpayers. But just realize this window is closing. I say this all the time, Spike. Tax season is a nightmare. I have a tax office.
I've seen what you look like during tax season.
No,
the phone is ringing off the hook, and you're right. It's not a great time to do tax.
And I'm a zombie, but you know what? I'll tell you this. What it does do is it gives us some insight into the fact that you need to plan your taxes now. And one of those tools is the Roth IRA. The way we do it is Roth conversion, right? So if you do have a 401k, you're over 59 and a half, and you think it makes sense to tax plan with that, you still, possibly can do it. You just need to know whether you're eligible or not. But the benefit is if you pay the taxes now in this lower environment, you may be able to avoid taxation as these rates go up over the future. We believe they're going up. I don't know for certain. But, here's the one thing. Your IRAs, as you end up pulling money out of these IRAs, they start affecting other things. They could affect penalties on your Medicare, or they could make your Social Security more taxable as they do right now in Spike. I mean, the one beauty of what we do here is we create real plans. We can help people retire comfortably. We can give them a very clearly understood cash flow model that says, hey, you're going to be just fine. People just don't know.
Right. And they don't know what to do. And one thing I wanted to bring up for you, because you don't like to talk about it yourself a lot, it's asset preservation, wealth, and tax. You have a tax arm to the firm. There are a lot of folks who do money management. There are a lot of folks out there who, those big box firms, they'll sell you products. There are annuity folks and insurance folks, and there can be appropriate situations for all of those things. The thing is, you do all of it. You have the tax arm. So you can take a look at the investment strategy and then say, tax-wise, is this also a good idea?
Yeah, and a lot of people wonder, well, if this is such a good idea, how come more firms aren't doing it? Well, right. I can tell you this. It's a blessing and a curse here. Our message has been resonating. People are taking it back to their advisors and saying, hey, this Stewart guy keeps talking about this Roth and, does it make sense for me? And, the advisor will go back to him and say, well, maybe go talk to your tax person about it. And then the tax guy says, go talk to your financial guy. And then the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. And guess what happened? Nothing. Nobody
wants to take the tax responsibility, or the CPA, and it's not their fault. You go to your CPA and say, hey, should I do this Roth conversion, but I want to pay as little in taxes this year as possible. And then they'll say, well, then you don't want to do a Roth conversion.
So that's the one thing we have to do with all of the, we have some great CPAs and enrolled agents that work with us, but we have to break a few habits. A lot of their habits historically have been, how do we save money today? Meaning how to be a hero for this tax return. And I think the problem with that is a lot of these CPAs, God bless them, they're building these tax time bombs so that when people retire, they've got this big tax burden. Because remember, when you pass away, you're paying that to your kids are going to end up paying all those taxes.
Right.
You're leaving this tax debt to them.
And what's some of these tax burdens that you're talking about real quick? So we're going to be taking money. We've been socialized for 30 or 40 years to save in these tax-protected accounts. Let's say our 401k. So we've got $1 million or $2 million in there or $500,000. We got to start taking that out. We pay the tax. Social Security. We read this statistic on the radio program. 51% of Americans didn't realize that you've got to pay tax on your Social Security, or you could be you might have to pay tax on it. Then we also have RMDs, required minimum distributions. I didn't say optional minimum distributions.
Yeah, they're required.
So we've got 3 different things, and that's why you call it the tax time bomb.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important to understand what else it does to you, what having this deferred tax does. The advisors like it because you never end up using your money. You have this big mountain of money, and you don't want to pay the tax bill. So what are you going to do? You're just going to let it sit there. But I've mentioned this story before, in past shows. But and I'll share it with you again. I had a client a couple years ago, 83 years old. He came in. We were doing his tax return. He wanted me to look at his portfolio. I said, "Wow, man, you've done a great job. He's got a couple $1 million saved here." And I said, "Congratulations." He just looked at me and he said, "Yeah, Stewart, but what the hell for? I'm 83 years old. I'm too old to enjoy my money. My wife's dead. I never took those trips because I was so afraid to pay the darn tax bill that I never actually got to enjoy my life's work." So at the end of the day, what is your why? Why are you doing this? If all you're doing is building a portfolio to show off to your friends, I don't really have a big interest in dealing with those people, right?
Yeah.
What we're looking for in the people we enjoy working with at Asset Preservation are the people that want to just absolutely squeeze the nectar out of life. Go take those trips while you can, because we're not getting any younger. But you have to take action and find out, does it make sense to have a tax plan? Are you being hindered by these tax burdens that are hiding in the background? If you have concerns about whether or not you're doing this thing, you've created this tax time bomb, what we're saying is give us a call. We're glad to give you a complimentary portfolio review, and we challenge you to see whether a Roth conversion is good for you. But you have to take action. Pick up your phone, click on that QR code, or even easier, give us a call at 833-652-7829. Just take action. Give us a call. We'd be glad to help.
Stewart, thank you so much for letting me join you on today's program. Please take advantage of what Stewart is talking about. We want to make sure that you can be and stay retired. Take the Roth conversion challenge. Have you been tax protected in those accounts? Maybe it's time for you to do that. 833-652-7829. Thank you for watching. Stewart will be back again next week.